Good day viewers, welcome to another edition of the Daily Strange Stories. I'm John Brown. I trust you've navigated the start of the week with energy and optimism. Our lead story for today: the rise and fall of Cat Matlala. Why General Sibiya made all of Matlala's crimes and dockets disappear, and this is what went wrong this time. In Pretoria, the capital city of South Africa, a man once known as a businessman now sits behind bars. His name is Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, a figure whose story stretches from the glitter of government tenders to the shadows of corruption and fear. Matlala's name now echoes across police corridors and parliamentary chambers, marking the downfall of a man who once believed himself untouchable. For over 2 decades, Matlala lived as a symbol of success, sharp suits, luxury cars, and bodyguards at every turn. He built an empire out of state contracts, spreading his reach into security, medical services, and logistics. On paper, he was a tenderpreneur, a man delivering services to the government. But behind the polished image, investigators now claim his real business was in manipulation, bribery, and the quiet purchase of silence. He didn't build his empire alone. According to multiple sources presented before both the Nhlanhla Commission of Inquiry and the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee, Matlala's power came from his connections. These connections were not ordinary ones. They reached deep into the South African Police Service, SAPS, touching senior officers and even politicians. At the top of that chain were people like Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, former Police Minister Bheki Cele, and his successor, the suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. All was well until KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi pulled a shocker and drew the country's attention to Matlala. It was General Mkhwanazi who, on the 6th of July 2025, first revealed Matlala's name to the nation. His briefing was not a casual press statement. It was a thunderous accusation, one that tied Matlala to the Big Five, a powerful criminal network said to control everything from tenders to drug trafficking. This was also the day the public first heard of Mkhwanazi's claim that senior police officials had been protecting cartel leaders in exchange for money.
On the 14th of May this year, 2025, the task team arrested Vusimuzi, who is also known as Cat Matlala, for an attempted murder ×3. I must highlight that this Mr. Vusimuzi Cat Matlala is an individual who was awarded a police contract of over 360 million rand in 2024. An analysis was conducted on electronic communication of this arrested person. This analysis reveals communication between the arrested Vusimuzi at Cat Matlala, Mr. Brown Mokhotsi, an associate of the Minister of Police, as well as the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu. The evidence has been found in the cell phone of Mr. Vusimuzi, also known as Cat Matlala, which shows the communication between Mr. Brown Mokhotsi and the Minister of Police, Mr. Senzo Mchunu.
At the center of this alleged web stood Matlala, known as Cat, for his uncanny ability to survive every scandal, every arrest, and every court case. His record over the years looked like a list of crimes that refused to stick: burglary, hijacking, theft, attempted murder, yet always withdrawn, dismissed, or mysteriously disappearing from the docket. Investigators now believe these disappearances were not coincidences but results of protection from within the police itself. According to testimony at the Nhlanhla Commission, one name was mentioned more than once: Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. It was alleged that, for years, Sibiya acted as the unseen hand ensuring Matlala's safety. Whenever a docket was opened, it somehow found its way to Sibiya's office in Pretoria. Once there, it would gather dust until it died a natural death. This pattern repeated again and again. One striking example involves the kidnapping case of Pretoria businessman Jerry Boshocha, who was said to be both a farmer and a drug dealer. Boshocha had allegedly borrowed 5 million rand from Matlala to purchase a drug manufacturing machine for his private use. When he failed to pay the debt, Matlala reportedly had him kidnapped. A case was opened, but before long, the docket was transferred to Sibiya's office.
On that day, Jerry got a call from the business partner that they should meet.
Is this a known business partner?
Very known.
Okay. Okay.
My brother knows. You've seen them.
Okay.
So can you imagine how trauma he saw everything. And where they drove there, Jerry was not with his bodyguards at that day.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy. That's actually insane. He wasn't. He's like, you know what, Dimi, please can you just drive me quickly to Centurion? Let me just meet with this business partner. They got there. Jerry got out of the car. Dimi's back here. He got out of the car. They spoke maybe like for 5 minutes. Jerry got inside the car.
Inside the bakkie.
The bakkie, just to let Dimi know that, listen, I'm just rushing quickly down the road. My business partner wants to show me some new building where we're going to be doing a new project for the business. I'll be back. Just give me 10 minutes. Dimi's like, okay, sure. That was it. The rest is history. Dimi called the wife after like 30 minutes or an hour. So I was like, hey, happy, I've been waiting for Jerry. Jerry's not here. What's up? Haven't you had a call? The phone is off. The wife's like, no, not yet. So why, what's up? It's like, hey, since that time, the phone is off. It's unlike him. After 5 minutes, the lady calls the wife, calls...
Dumi.
Yes. Jerry fatong phone in. Arbam kidnapile. Yes. Dimi got the call after she's spoken to the wife. Wanna go hi? Happy banter. Kidnapile. That was it. After that, the rest is history. That's when the money, the torturing the family. We've been tortured so much. Getting threats that if we don't do this, you know, they're going to make the videos torturing him viral. This is why I got so mad.
I'm dying. This is too serious. Please help me. Please. I can't die like this. I'm begging you, my love. Look at me now. I really need this money. You know I work hard. I can't be treated like this. I'm dying here, man. Please talk to your father. Talk to all our sources. We need this money. You need to pay these guys. Please, I need this money to save my life. Talk to your father very strongly. Talk to everyone that owes us money very strongly. I'm dying. This is too serious.
I really need you. Please, mother. Please come and pay. Pay everything that they want. Please, I'm begging you. You're the only one who can help me. Please, mother. Please.
My son is asking for help and I can't help him. Nobody can help him. I get messages that Jerry's best friend, Cat Vusimuzi, is the one who is involved in this kidnapping. And I feel so bad and it hurt me so much that I know Vusi. I've met Vusi.
We have people in the organization that when a case is open, they take the docket and they keep it in their office and they don't investigate it. And we have evidence for that. The Deputy Provincial Commissioner Gauteng can be called into this commission. He will tell you the list of all these dockets that were opened. There is one of them, it's a kidnapped person which is allegedly Matlala is involved. That docket was in Gauteng, but an instruction came from the head office, the Sibiya's office, that we want that case docket. That docket is sitting in the head office. The mother of the kidnapped son, or the missing son, even contacted me because she can't find closure. And now we begin to see that who are people implicated, the Matlalas, and these investigations have been suppressed. We therefore cannot sit back, commissioners. We must take off our palaberam shoes and take off our blue uniform and wear boots and go and face the enemy directly.
That was the end of it. No trial, no closure, just silence. For a long time, that silence was the sound of Matlala's protection. But that protection had a source, a man named Johan Msibi. Until his death in January last year, Msibi was said to be the operational leader of the Big Five cartel and was the brother of Nhlanhla Msibi, the ANC Treasurer General of Mpumalanga. Like his brother, Nhlanhla also had clouds of criminal allegations hanging above him, including murder and attempted murder charges. It was said that Johan Msibi controlled not only his criminal empire but also his political access, creating a shield that covered his loyal men. Among those loyal men was Matlala. As long as Johan lived, Matlala was protected. He knew when to pay and whom to please. His dealings with Sibiya ensured that police files went missing or were buried. When officers investigated too deeply, someone higher up would withdraw the cases. And if political interference was needed, there was Msibi's influence over people like then Police Minister Bheki Cele and prominent presidential hopeful Senzo Mchunu, who served as police minister after Cele. It was through these political relationships that Matlala found new strength. By 2024, his company, Medicare 24 Chone District, secured a massive 360 million rand contract with SAPS to provide health services for police officers. The deal, signed under the watch of National Commissioner Fani Masemola, gave him direct access to police budgets and structure. The irony is that the very institution assigned to investigate him was now paying him hundreds of millions for services. But that contract soon became the beginning of his downfall. Investigations later showed that the entire tender process had irregularities, from overpricing to forged compliance documents. Rumors inside SAPS suggested that the tender had been pushed through by individuals who benefited from Matlala's payouts. Internal sources claimed that even Deputy Commissioner Sibiya requested updates on that tender several times, though he would later deny involvement. Behind closed doors, Matlala was untouchable, but his world started to shake after January last year when his protector, Johan Msibi, died of an undisclosed illness. Without Msibi, Matlala's shield began to crack, dockets that once vanished began to resurface, and people who once served as his allies started testifying against him. The same General Mkhwanazi who first exposed Matlala's name also revealed the links between the Big Five cartel and political leadership. He detailed how Matlala's businesses were winning contracts beyond reasonable logic. He alleged that the tenders Matlala's firms won in health and security were often accompanied by unexplained money transfers to politicians, some of which went to fund political campaigns within the ruling party. One of the names that appeared in this network was that of businessman Brown Mkhwanazi, a close associate of suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. Evidence from WhatsApp messages retrieved from Matlala's phone showed how Mkhwanazi acted as the middleman between Matlala and senior political figures. In those exchanges, Mkhwanazi reassured Matlala that his issues with the Political Killings Task Team, PKTT, would be resolved. Not long after that promise, the PKTT, a special unit investigating political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, was indeed disbanded. That very week, 121 ongoing case dockets were recalled from the team. Where did they go? Straight to the office of Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya. None of those cases ever saw light again. At that point, it became clearer to many investigators that Matlala's fortune was built on a web of favors, influence, and fear. He had mastered the art of surviving by paying off the right people at the right time. He was known for being generous with high-ranking officers and politicians, giving them cars, cash, and even funding parties and events. Some sources within the Hawks described him as the money engine behind the network. He had so much cash that he could buy peace wherever it was needed. Those inside police structures either worked for him or feared him. But what Matlala didn't see coming was that his empire, built on secrecy, would one day turn against him. When General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi took that bold step to expose him, everything started breaking apart. Suddenly, those who had once sung his praises began distancing themselves. Some said they only knew him in business. Others claimed that whatever dealings they had were lawful. But the louder their denials became, the more suspicious they sounded to the public. By late 2025, the Nhlanhla Commission had already gathered mountains of evidence linking Matlala's fortune to corrupt tenders and his ties to politicians. His legal team tried to play it down, calling the allegations unproven, but inside the commission halls, his name had become a synonym for organized corruption. By the time the Nhlanhla Commission began its public hearings, South Africa had already learned how deep the roots of Matlala's influence went. Each day brought fresh testimony detailing how tenders were tainted, how files disappeared, and how the country's justice system had been quietly swallowed by greed. One of the most revealing testimonies was given by Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo, the head of crime intelligence. On the 29th of September 2025, he spoke at length about an organized criminal network operating under the alias the Big Five. He described its members as men who wore two faces, legitimate businessmen in public, but powerful syndicate masterminds in secret. Their reach extended into the very heart of the state, with control over tenders, police decisions, and even political campaigns. Khumalo confirmed that the Big Five cartel included Matlala and another figure, Katiso Molefe, a Santon tycoon with equal influence in lucrative government networks. Together, they were accused of using their wealth to shield themselves from the law. When it came to evidence, Khumalo didn't only speak, he produced thousands of WhatsApp messages showing Matlala's daily communications with top officials, some exposing discussions about cash payments, secret political donations, and instructions to disband certain investigating units. Among the retrieved messages were Matlala's exchanges with businessman Brown Mkhwanazi, who was one of President Cyril Ramaphosa's informal political handlers within the ANC. Those messages revealed unsettling details. Mkhwanazi served as the direct link between Matlala and suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. What's more, they showed Mkhwanazi reassuring Matlala that his tender troubles would be handled right before the R360 million Medicare 24 contract with SAPS was formally approved. Investigators later found that the documents related to that tender had been tampered with. Invoices didn't match the goods supplied, and payment dates were altered. Yet the money had long been paid. Tugging at this one thread soon began to unravel the vast web that Matlala had woven over years. Then came the revelation about the disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team, known as the PKTT. This team was established to investigate a series of politically motivated murders and suspicious deaths across various provinces. When their investigation began to touch on cases involving people in Matlala's circle, the team found itself abruptly dissolved. The explanation given at the time, administrative restructuring, was dismissed by General Mkhwanazi, who insisted that it was a deliberate measure ordered to protect cartel-linked individuals. The dots connected too easily. Mkhwanazi promised Matlala relief. Soon after, the PKTT was disbanded, and all its 121 case dockets, some implicating Matlala and his partners, were transferred to Deputy Commissioner Shadrack's Sibiya's office in Pretoria. There they gathered dust, just like Boshocha's kidnapping case months earlier. At the Nhlanhla Commission, General Mkhwanazi's documentation showed how that single act crushed investigations across several provinces, leaving the Big Five stronger than ever. Yet when Sibiya finally appeared before the Commission and the ad hoc committee, he denied everything. He admitted to meeting both Matlala and Mkhwanazi but called those meetings strictly professional. When asked about the allegations that he had received R1 million per month from Matlala, Sibiya called it fabrication meant to tarnish his reputation. But from the testimonies presented by Witness C, an investigator from Gauteng Counterintelligence, evidence of these regular payments existed in decrypted financial transactions. These details left the public bewildered. How could such an elaborate network thrive for years without being stopped? The answer slowly came into view, because the system that was meant to stop it had been bought. The parliamentary ad hoc committee that ran alongside the commission took the matter further. It was tasked with probing whether South Africa's policing command had been captured. Members of Parliament heard from whistleblowers, investigators, and political figures. The session where suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu appeared became one of the most heated. Mchunu denied meeting Matlala or accepting any favors from him. He told the committee that he first heard Matlala's name from a newspaper article late in 2024. But not everyone believed him. Members like Julius Malema demanded to know why Matlala's affidavit, written from prison, directly mentioned communication between him and Mchunu through Brown Mkhwanazi. If there was no link, they asked, why did Matlala's companies appear to receive tender benefits under Mchunu's ministry? Mchunu insisted that he had, in fact, authorized the termination of that 360 million rand tender once irregularities were discovered. He tried to distance himself completely, but the lingering suspicion refused to die. As investigators dug deeper, they began tracing how Matlala's criminal operations were sustained long before his tender empire. His past criminal record, dating back to 2000, painted a long story of impunity. He had been arrested for crimes like burglary, theft, hijacking, and even possession of stolen goods. Yet almost every single case listed withdrawn or not guilty as the outcome. It looked less like luck and more like protection. By 2006, he was already involved in a cash-in-transit case in Vaal. He was acquitted. In 2013, he was charged with house robbery, again withdrawn. In 2015, he faced carjacking and possession of stolen goods in Silverton, withdrawn. Case after case followed that same pattern, almost like routine. That pattern only changed after Msibi's death last year. Without Msibi's protection and his direct influence at senior police levels, Matlala's world started to collapse. The once silenced dockets were reopened, and allies who had previously blocked investigations could no longer resist the growing pressure from the national commissioners. It was Brigadier Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the SAPS national spokesperson, who publicly stated that all of Matlala's old dockets would be reviewed. The directive came directly from National Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who now wanted to know why so many cases against Matlala had been handled so poorly.
We cannot rule out the possibility that at a later stage we will then go back and investigate why do we have more than 13 cases withdrawn against Cat Matlala. We will go back to ask ourselves why was he not found guilty in some of these cases. I mean, you're talking about a 2006 cash in transit heist that he was found not guilty on.
As evidence unfolded, new allegations emerged that might have been dismissed as fantasy just a few years earlier. One involved the murder of Gauteng health official Babita Deokaran in August 2021, a tragedy that had shaken the public conscience. Deokaran had been working to uncover corruption at Tembisa Hospital, tracing irregular tenders back to several companies, among them Black AK Trading and Korgabing Trading, both linked to Matlala. Just before her death, Deokaran had flagged suspicious payments to those firms, holding back 5 million rand that was to be released. She sent cautionary messages to her superiors, saying she feared the guys in Tembisa would realize she had found something. Days later, she was killed outside her home in Johannesburg. The case was initially treated as random, but links later connected her murder to a tender circle involving the same group of companies that enriched Matlala. When that revelation reached the commission, it placed doubt upon every contract Matlala ever received from the state. He had formed several companies in quick succession between 2017 and 2020, each gaining heavy government contracts in health and security. Names like Falcon Cat Trading, Lux South African Investments, and Black AK Trading appeared repeatedly in audit reviews. They supplied goods at inflated prices or submitted forged paperwork but were still paid millions. What made investigators furious was not just the corruption, but how confidently it was done. Matlala seemed to believe he could not be touched. His businesses flourished even in the middle of criminal investigations. His lifestyle, luxury cars, expensive clothes, and high-end properties didn't falter. He attended political events, rubbed shoulders with leaders, and, according to reports, financed internal ANC activities through Mkhwanazi. This combination of power, money, and access had made him almost invisible to justice. However, his downfall did not come through a police operation or a missed tender document, it came through his own arrogance. In 2023, Matlala was implicated in the attempted murder of his ex-lover, socialite and actress Tebogo Tsobechane. A vehicle she was traveling in was attacked near Sandton, and she was wounded in the leg before eventually fleeing the country. Although initially denied, it later emerged that several suspects tied to the attack had direct contact with Matlala before and after the shooting. When police traced those communications, they uncovered patterns of behavior that extended far beyond a personal dispute: offshore accounts, secret identity documents from Eswatini, and irregular money transfers abroad. The dots that investigators failed to connect for years suddenly started to align on their own. By the time Matlala was arrested in May 2025, the public was just beginning to learn how complicated his empire truly was. When Vusimuzi Cat Matlala was finally arrested on the 14th of May 2025, it did not happen with the usual glamour of flashing cameras or breaking news announcements. For years, he had watched officers come and go from his mansion, sometimes as friends, sometimes as business partners, but never as arresting officers. This time, the roles had reversed. The charges he faced this time were far heavier than before. Investigators accused him of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and money laundering linked to the attempted killing of actress Tebogo Tsobechene. The evidence included phone records, financial transfers, and confessions from 2 intermediaries allegedly hired to track Tsobechene's movements. Prosecutors even claimed that money paid for the failed hit came from one of Matlala's company accounts disguised as security consultancy payments. Unlike his past encounters with the law, this time the justice system didn't bend so easily. The attempted murder and money laundering charges carried enough weight to keep him detained while the investigations expanded. For the first time in his long history, bail was denied. When the Alexandra Magistrates Court reviewed his application in September 2025, magistrates cited him as a flight risk. They said he possessed an Eswatini identity document, had access to vast offshore assets, and could easily flee. His lawyers dismissed these claims, attacking the prosecution's evidence as circumstantial, but the judgment stuck. When his team appealed the decision before the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg on the 27th of October, the outcome was the same: bail denied. Matlala was officially trapped in the very system he had evaded for decades. From his prison cell, he tried to stop the wave of exposure crashing against him. Sources from within CMAX prison described how he wrote to political allies, urging them to ensure his name remained out of the Madlanga Commission reports. But the damage had already been done. His former partners, once confident in his power, had started cooperating with investigators. One of the most surprising witnesses was a former accountant from one of Matlala's companies who, under protection, told investigators that company books had been deliberately falsified to mask payments to senior police officers. According to financial analysis, millions had been siphoned from the 360 million rand Medicare 24 China district contract into ghost accounts connected to Shell foundations. Among the beneficiaries, forensic analysts traced transfers matching dates of communications between Matlala and both Brown Mkhwanazi and Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya. The more investigators uncovered, the more Matlala's story looked like a mirror image of South Africa's criminal and political underworld. It reflected how greed, loyalty, and fear walked hand in hand. From the outside, he was a supplier of medical services and security systems, but inside police archives, his name appeared alongside suspected kidnappings, extortions, and contract killings. General Dumisani Khumalo, the crime intelligence boss who had first tied him to the Big Five, told the commission that the cartel was structured like a legitimate corporation. Each member had a specific domain: drugs, tenders, hijackings, and assassinations. They laundered their profits through real companies, making it nearly impossible to differentiate dirty money from clean earnings. Matlala's role was the tender channel. He had established the legal facade needed to convert the proceeds of deeper criminal activities into respectable contracts. That was why he never ran from attention. Legitimacy was his disguise. Investigators found that the cartel placed particular value in controlling local law enforcement. By paying off officials, they secured tactical advantages, early warnings about raids, dismissed investigations, or inside access to evidence. This protection stretched through multiple provinces, but its central operational hub was Johannesburg, where most of their meetings were held. What made the Big Five different from other syndicates wasn't only its power but its three-layered shield: political partners, police mobility, and financial camouflage. When political protection began to shake after the death of Johan Msibi, one layer peeled off. Without Msibi's imposing presence, the cartel lost its strongest bridge into the ANC networks. This gap exposed Matlala more directly. General Mkhwanazi's testimony before the ad hoc committee described those cracks precisely. He narrated how, following Msibi's death, Sibiya and Mchunu struggled to maintain operational continuity within the protection network. The disbandment of the PKTT had already caused suspicion. Internal investigators began tracing how such a massive decision could have been authorized without strong justification. When those trails led back to correspondence between Mkhwanazi and Matlala, eyes turned towards Sibiya again. At that stage, SAPS had become a battlefield of trust and betrayal. While National Police Commissioner Fanny Masemola and Brigadier Atsenda Matse tried to restore confidence in the institution, senior insiders whispered about which officers had benefited from cartel money. Some said even members who appeared clean had once accepted gifts. A few admitted receiving donations but insisted they thought the money came from Matlala's legitimate businesses. For the public, these hearings revealed just how entangled the police had become with men like Matlala. It wasn't simply corruption, it was dependency. Many officers had risen through ranks during the same years the cartel's wealth evaporated through luxury rentals, fleet donations, and secret campaign sponsorships. Meanwhile, the Nhlanhla Commission continued connecting dots across cases once thought unrelated. The murder of Babita Deokaran, for instance, was reclassified in context of the Tembisa Hospital tender web. Statements and digital audit trails linked payments to Matlala's firms, showing that those contracts had cost the province millions in inflated invoices. It was as though every layer of Matlala's life, business, crime, politics, overlapped perfectly, forming a complete circle of influence. Before long, the term Big Five ceased to sound like myth. Ordinary South Africans began to associate it with an invisible system that stole their taxes and bought silence where justice was due. Even as the inquiries deepened, Matlala's allies have tried their last moves. Businessman Brown Mkhwanazi has attempted to distance himself, claiming he was a simple networker within ANC circles who frequently met numerous businessmen for donations. But the financial evidence didn't lie. Transfers matching Matlala's firm accounts appeared alongside ANC event expenses Mkhwanazi had coordinated. Inside Parliament, the ad hoc committee extended its own investigation beyond the planned deadline, saying there were still loose threads to pull. Questions remained about whether President Cyril Ramaphosa himself was ever aware that men inside his party were funded by individuals under criminal suspicion. To protect his image, the presidency kept its responses brief, referring everything to law enforcement. In Matlala's absence, his businesses began collapsing one by one. Suppliers demanded payments, employees grew anxious. Those who once spoke of him as the cat who always landed on his feet now whispered that his luck had finally run out. The luxury cars he once flaunted were seized, his accounts were frozen, and his mansion stood half deserted, guarded occasionally by unpaid staff. For the first time, the narrative of the invincible Cat Matlala began turning into a cautionary tale of greed that had gone too far. To the public, it seemed like a long overdue victory. But for those who knew how deep the corruption ran, it was only the beginning. Every file opened now touched another name, another law enforcement officer, another political figure. By November 2025, the story of Vusimuzi Cat Matlala had turned into one of South Africa's most talked about criminal sagas. Day after day, new revelations emerged, some through the Nhlanhla Commission, others through internal police reports and leaked parliamentary briefings. The once mysterious tender guru, who had outwitted the justice system for decades, was now known as the man whose empire collapsed under the very corruption that built it. Inside CMAX prison, time moved differently for Matlala. He has spent most days consulting with his lawyers and writing long handwritten notes he insisted would one day prove his innocence. To those who visited him, he still spoke with confidence, promising that people would soon understand what really happened. But outside, the evidence that piled up against him left little room for doubt. Even more astonishing was the discovery that several vehicles registered under Matlala's firms had been tagged as belonging to the Ekurhuleni Metro Police. Using connections from within the department, Matlala allegedly had his private luxury cars registered as municipal vehicles, allowing him free passage through tolls and access to police fuel cards. Documents proving this arrangement surfaced at the ad hoc committee, shocking even seasoned MPs who had witnessed countless cases of corruption before. When investigators confronted Sibiya with those documents, he claimed ignorance, suggesting it could have been an administrative oversight. But those who followed the hearings knew the excuse would not hold. The web of deceit had grown too large, too detailed, to be explained away by coincidence. In one of the later sessions, the Nhlanhla Commission revealed another twist that pulled national attention even tighter: 3 digital files that Matlala had sent in April 2025 to KwaZulu-Natal Hawks boss Major General Lesetja Senona. The files included one document tracing activity around Senzo Mchunu's foundation, and another that contained findings on what was called memo bis traces, mentioning President Cyril Ramaphosa's multiple identification numbers. What stood out wasn't only the sensitivity of the content but the fact that these files came directly from Matlala's personal correspondence. For investigators, this raised troubling possibilities. Why would a known tender businessman be holding state and presidential documents? And how did he obtain information so classified unless senior officers had leaked it to him? Such questions pushed the inquiry away from ordinary corruption and deep into the territory of national security breaches. Through all this, Matlala's past seemed to haunt every page of the investigation. His early crimes from the year 2000 painted the picture of a man who had perfected the art of survival long before he built his fortune. Arrested repeatedly, often on serious charges, he never served long prison sentences. It was as if he had been sharpening his methods for decades, learning from each arrest how the system could be bent or bought. Those who had worked under him later described him as strategic, not reckless. He never left evidence that pointed directly to him. Everything he did passed through middlemen. In the underworld, he was feared not just for his money but for his patience. He could wait years to secure a deal, carefully planting people in useful positions before closing in. The common thread through all of his history was influence. It was said Matlala understood that the strongest weapon in South Africa was not a gun but connection, knowing who to call, who to pay, and who to silence. That was how he built friendships with top police officials, politicians, and even business executives. And when those connections started collapsing after Msibi's death, Matlala's entire empire began to crumble with them. Still, there remains one question that troubles investigators and the public alike: how many other Matlalas operate unseen, funding power and hiding behind influence? How many cases, like the ones in his past, still sit gathering dust in offices where justice sleeps? And as South Africa waits for the court's final verdict, one question lingers like smoke in the air: will Cat Matlala's fall finally mark the end of an era of hidden power, or is it only the surface of something much deeper still buried within the walls of the state? What do you think? Was Matlala simply the face of a larger circle that still operates in silence, or has his arrest truly marked an end to a long chapter of untouchable corruption? Share your thoughts below and tell us what you believe really lies behind the story of the rise and fall of Cat Matlala. Thanks for watching this news bulletin. Please share your opinion in the comments section. We would be glad to read and respond to your comments. Let's meet again tomorrow in our next strange story. Have a focused and efficient Tuesday.